they're not able to attend. So that is not a problem. So today's webinar is about demystifying artificial intelligence. My name is Allison Pedrick. I oversee for BSD Education all of our customers and partners in North America. BSD is a global company, and I'll talk a little bit about them in a minute. Um, I do a lot of their curriculum needs, creating pathways for teachers, supporting them, providing professional development, webinars such as this. I was a former digital literacy teacher for just a little over 10 years, and I do have a master's degree in education. So, a little bit more about BSD. So, BSD education empowers teachers to bring digital skills into their classroom. And we do that through our curriculum. We have over 600 hours of curriculum that's all based around app development, web development, game development, virtual reality, artificial intelligence. And we provide that all that curriculum on our platform, which is a coding based platform, and we teach HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Python. And then we partner that with the training and support. That's where I come in. So it could be anything from one-on-one sessions, it could be a coaching session, it could be a professional development. Maybe the teacher needs some guidance on the pathway that they want to take from the beginner level projects, um, escalating up to advanced level projects. So it could be any type of support that you need. That also includes our live support. So not just me, but we also have live support channels. That's nearly a 24/7 support. Um, and through BSD, we really focus on three different areas. The first one being those hard skills. And because we are a coding and programming platform, we're always sure to include that data analysis and the interpretation. And the students are always creating. There's always a project that is followed up at the end, kind of like a capstone project, for example. Then we also focus on those soft skills. And because all of our projects are real world, let me try that one again, real world based, there's a lot of communication, a lot of collaboration, and the students are always thinking critically throughout each of those projects. And then finally, our acronym values. So, or our acronym CARE, curiosity, adaptability, and resilience and empathy is really what we try to hone in on all of our curriculum, and making sure that we're teaching the students about curiosity and how to be adaptable, how to be resilience, and how to show that empathy, again, through all those real world projects through our curriculum. All right, enough about BSD. Let's jump in. This is why we are here. We're here to discuss artificial intelligence, and we already know that AI is everywhere we go. So, we have generative AI, we have facial recognition, we have text predicting, um, we have face swapping for just something fun and unusual to do. Even through our email and things that we watch on TV is all generated through AI. And from working with mostly educators, I get a sense from people that you're either on like one end of the spectrum or the other. You're either really scared, maybe there's a lack of understanding when it comes to AI, or I see those teachers that are really embracing and taking advantage of AI. So, and Beth and I were talking right before the webinar how we think it's kind of ironic how it's either one end or the other. I never really see like a happy medium of people. It's either you're really afraid or intimidated, or you don't like AI, or you're embracing it and really diving in deep. So let's talk about some different examples of AI. Many of these you're already going to be very familiar with. So AI in gaming, definitely. Your students in particular are definitely aware of AI being used in type of gaming. You have that simulated opponent that you're playing against. Um, and recently, I just saw a video where AI was infused with Minecraft. So, I mean, what a great way to get your students engaged in talking about AI and gaming. They all love Minecraft, especially at that upper elementary and middle school age in particular. So, great way to engage your students into that conversation is just talking about gaming from their own experience. Then, of course, like I did mention, we have predictive or suggestive text. And this is all through. So, think about like every time you watch a YouTube video or Spotify or you're on Google, those are all AI driven. I actually had a conversation with my mother the other day. She's like, every time I go on Facebook now, I keep getting all these craft videos. Well, it's because you started watching those craft videos. So now they're suggesting additional ones that you may be of interest in. And this is all done through a series of algorithms. So as you start watching YouTube and or Netflix is a great example, you'll see because you liked this show, you may like this one next. That is all AI driven. Of course, we all should be very familiar with digital assistants between Siri and Alexa and Google, right? They help us turn our lights on. They help remind us that we have an appointment that day. They'll create shopping lists for us. So, really, just making our life a little bit easier. Now we can just simply, and I'm not going to say the magic words, but we could say blank Google. I don't want Google listening to me in the next room, but it's so easy for me to be able to access that digital assistant and get any type of help. Even games, stories, it'll tell me, poems. The really big, what I feel is one of the big controversial topics when we're talking about AI is when it comes to art and music. So nowadays, AI can create music and create art for us. And to be honest with you, a lot of AI generated artwork are for sale all around the world in different galleries. I could probably spend a whole webinar just talking about AI music and art, and a lot of people question if it really is art when AI is creating it. And that's what I mean. Like, I think that could be a whole nother subject or a whole nother webinar, I should say. Okay, and then obviously we all have been using Google Maps or Scout or some type of app that help us navigate. And then, of course, we have autonomous vehicles. That's being used and created by Tesla and Google themselves. Robotics. So obviously, robotics is very hot right now. AI is definitely in the field of robotics. Amazon is using it just to be able to move boxes and do shipments. There is a local company near me called Global Foundries, and they use AI and robotics to make microchips. So I just find that so fascinating that technology is being used to make additional technology. Um, so again, just making life easier, making production quicker. Um, but AI is in every single field that we can think of and in our lives on a regular basis. Okay, so let's break down. There's three different categories that we can kind of look at or put AI into. So the first one is artificial narrow intelligence. This is the one that we are familiar with. This is the one that's designed to do a specific task. We do that task very well, or the computer, does that task very well. And it's usually based around like data patterns and mathematics. It's really programmed to think. So, again, going back to some of those examples that I gave you, like Google and digital assistants, um, looking at YouTube or Netflix. This is the artificial intelligence that we currently have that most of us are using. Now, AI can fall into other categories as well. So, the next level, so to speak, would be artificial general intelligence. This is the hypothetical AI. So this is kind of equal to human intelligence. So the computer is learning and thinking and solving problems like a human across, here's the big important part of this definition, across any and all tasks. Okay, so we're not 100% there, but we are getting a little bit closer. Okay. Now, the one that I kind of feel is the one that everyone is the most frightened of, and I'm gonna put the blame on TV and movies. This is the artificial super intelligence. This is what we see in sci-fi. Okay, this is AI intelligence that far surpasses human intelligence. Okay, so now if we think about every single field, and the machine outthinks us in science, creativity, decision making. We are not there yet. This is literally sci-fi or science fiction. But I think this is where people get really, this is that apprehension, that's the nervousness about AI, is because we see movies and we see how super intelligent the robots are, and that is just sci-fi right now. Now, there are many discussions right now that, again, we could have a whole nother discussion, a whole nother webinar just on this topic, is like, where is AI going? Where is it going to lead us? A lot of people look at AI in negative consequences, and others will look at it as a positive consequence. So again, that could be a whole nother discussion about where I is leading us in the future. But right now we can classify AI into those three general categories. All right, let's focus a little bit more and hone in a little bit more detail, like what is machine learning? So a formal definition, so to speak, is the science of getting computers to learn automatically by themselves. So without me going in and programming it, I'm going to train it, or educate the machine. And a great example. So think of machine learning like you're teaching your student. So if we're teaching students their multiplication tables, we're going to give them those examples over and over, right? Repetition. They keep practicing 2 times 2, 2 times 2. And that's exactly like what we would do with the machine. So we're going to continue to give it examples. And the more examples that we give it, the more the machine will start to learn those patterns and be able to make those decisions. Okay. So just think of a machine learning just like us teaching our students. All right. We're going to look at machine learning as if we're basing it on our human body. Okay, so think of AI as a digital version of us. Its sensors gather information. Okay, its processors think like our brain, and the output is like our body. Okay, so for example, let's focus on sensors first. So that's the input. So our human body sensors would be our ears and our eyes, our skin, our nose, anything that's going to gather information around the world. Okay, so for example, I see an apple and I can see the color of the apple. Maybe I can smell the apple. Maybe I can touch the apple to see how smooth it is. In the AI system, those sensors, think of a camera. A camera is the eyes. A microphone might be the ears or the output. Um, the touch sensors on a computer is just like our skin. Okay. So that is the sensor. Once we have gathered that input, then we're going to go to the processor or our brain. So our brain processes the information from all of those senses that we have gathered. So I've identified the apple. The apple looks like it's edible, it's ripe. So my brain is going to then tell my body it's okay to reach out and take that apple off the tree. In an AI system, okay, the processor is the AI's brain, and it uses different algorithms and machine learning models to process all of that data. So think of again like Siri. When I give Siri a command, maybe I want to inquire about today's weather. Siri will take my voice as the input and process what question that I'm asking. In this example, I'm asking about the weather. And then the last piece of that is the output. So now I've looked at the apple, I've identified the apple as being ripe. My brain has processed that it's okay to eat that apple and that I should reach out and pluck it off the tree. And then obviously the output or the actual action that I'm taking is me actually pulling it off the tree. And when it comes to AI, it would be pretty much the same thing. It would be that robotic arm picking up an object. Maybe I gave a command and the output is on my computer screen, or maybe it's Siri responding to me about the weather. So that's how kind of like our human body correlates or connects with the way AI processes information too. So this is a great visual for you to be able to illustrate with your students to be able to explain each of those processes. All right, let's explore how AI image recognition works. I actually find this extremely fascinating. So we all have heard of the word pixels. So first, let's look at the picture of Abraham Lincoln. We clearly can identify that as Abraham Lincoln. But when a computer looks at it, it actually doesn't look at it as that whole image like we do. It breaks it down into those small little blocks called pixels. And each of those little pixels are assigned a value. And the value is usually like 0 is black, and then every shade going to white at 255. So you can see in this third picture here how these numbers have been assigned to each of these hues or each of these shades of grays that we're looking at. And then it just spits out the numbers. So this is exactly how a computer will read an image. And ironically enough, this was, oh, I'd say probably about 25 years ago. I had actually created a mosaic quilt, and I did it exactly how a computer thinks. So I provided myself, I gave my image, which was a picture of my son when he was a baby. And then I assigned values to that picture. So I chose different, mine were all in blues instead of black and white, different shades of blue. And I assigned each of those shades a number. And that's how I created the quilt the same exact way. So this is that one of those pictures, like if you've ever been on social media where you kind of have to squint your eyes. And when you squint your eyes, you can actually see the image. So if you actually do this on picture number 3 where my mouse is, and you kind of squint, you'd be able to see Abe Lincoln. And that's exactly how my mosaic quilt was as well. The farther away that I stood from it, the clearer the picture, or I could do a little squint of my eyes and be able to see, in this example, Abe Lincoln. Now, not only is it looking at it as pixels, but it also breaks it down by layers. So layers of neural network perform different tasks. So they go layer by layer. So first they might look at those lines and those edges. So if you look really closely, you might be able to figure out some of these patterns. Like this might be part of an eye. This might be part of their nose. This looks like part of the eye. So they're really the computer's looking at those low level features, almost like they zoomed in on the picture. Then they're going to zoom out a little bit and then they're going to start seeing another layer. So now we can really start to see some of those shapes. I can clearly see this is an eye and a nose, etc. And then of course, then I'm going to zoom out, or the computer's going to zoom out even more, and then we're going to look at that extra layer, which is almost like that whole visual at that point. Okay, including those pixels. So when a computer is looking at an image, it's looking at all different layers and all different pixels all at the same time. Now, of course, we all know that AI is not perfect, and it is so important to make sure that your students understand this as well. AI is not perfect. It's only as good as what we supply it with. Okay, so meaning that um, when we're looking or giving it different images or other data, if that data is too similar, the computer or the machine is going to struggle. So let's take a look at this example. So clearly, I'm trying to teach the machine to identify blueberry muffins, but some of these blueberry muffins actually are a chihuahua. But because of the placement of the dog's eyes and nose, it's so similar to the blueberry muffin. So this is a perfect example of when we are training the machine that it's always going to be recognizing the data that we provide it. So if we're not providing clear data, then it is going to make even more mistakes. So here's another great example. So if I am training the machine to identify dogs, well, in this picture, I've got brown dogs, I've got white and black dogs, brown and white dogs, brown, black, and white dogs. I've got dogs with their tongues out, some without their tongues out. So to be good at predicting, an AI needs lots and lots of examples, just like going back to your student who's learning multiplication tables. We need to continue to give all those um, all those examples for them to learn. Now, of course, when we're learning about or we're training our machine, there's a lot of data bias that goes along with this. So the first one, which I kind of already mentioned, was I'm not supplying it with enough information. So it's going back to that blueberry muffin. If I'm not giving them consistent, good quality blueberry muffin pictures, the machine is going to get confused and start identifying other things that look similar to that blueberry muffin. So let's use apples and bananas as a new example. So let's say I'm training the machine to identify apples and bananas, and maybe I'm only giving it like two or three pictures of each. Well, we all know that apples come in all different shapes and colors, and bananas are going to have different hues of yellow, maybe a little bit of brown or green. So, if I'm not, again, supplying enough data, then the machine is going to struggle to identify apples and bananas. Again, if my data isn't diverse enough, so if I'm not showing a variety, maybe I'm only showing it Macintosh apples. Well, then if I show it a Granny Smith apple, it's not going to recognize that as an apple because it's used to seeing a Macintosh that's red. So I need to be able to provide the machine with diverse data as well. Another one is if the data isn't clear, maybe I'm constantly showing it images of low quality. And then all of a sudden, I show it a high quality image of an apple. It's going to struggle because it's so used to seeing maybe a faded color apple or something that's a little blurry. So I, again, need to be able to show low quality and high quality images. So that way the machine is constantly learning. So again, ultimately, the AI or the machine learning tool is only as good as the provided data that we have given it. So whether that's apples, bananas, dogs, cats, I've got to make sure that I'm showing good quality images and a variety of those images. Another example would be if I took pictures of apples that were only in a basket and then I showed the machine an apple outside of the basket, it's going to struggle because it's used to seeing apples in a basket and that's how it's identifying them. So, again, just making sure that there's a lot of variety, diverse, quality images that I'm showing my machine. Now, of course, right along with all that data bias comes human bias. Now, psychologists and sociologists have identified over 50 different types of human bias. I'm only going to touch on four, and these I think you probably will recognize, you've heard before, you might even experienced before. So, of course, we have gender bias. So, this is just a preference over one gender over another. We have ageism. Maybe you're judging an individual based on their age, whether they're maybe too young or maybe they're too old. And then we have the horns effect. That's like, oops, you made one mistake and now it's kind of clouded you. That's everyone's opinion now. You've made that mistake, so now you have that bad label, that horn effect label. And then, of course, that's just the opposite when we have the halo effect. That one person, they do something really great. Now they're anticipated on doing something great all the time. So these are just 4 different examples. And like I said, there's over 50 different human biases that have been identified, but these are some of the most common ones that we've heard of before. Okay, I want us to do a little activity. So if you could just grab a scrap piece of paper nearby, you're just going to jot down a few little things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some images, and I want you to act as a machine. I want you to think that I am training you and you are going to classify the objects. So for example, let's say I showed you a picture of 2 cats and they were playing. You, thinking as a machine, are going to identify the objects. The object meaning the cat in this example. You wouldn't say, I see 2 cats playing. That would be a human response. So I want you to really kind of put your machine thinking brain on, and you're just going to identify the objects that you see. And I will give you a hint about 3 objects in each picture. Okay, so remember, thinking like a machine. So when I go to the slide, I'm going to give you about 20 seconds. I'll kind of count in my head about 20 seconds so you have some think time. All right. Hopefully you got your piece of paper and your pen. Here is the first image. So go ahead, think like a machine and classify the objects that you see. And like I said, my hint was 3. Okay. You can certainly add more. All right. Hopefully that was enough time. We'll go to the next image. Again, thinking like a machine, classify the objects that you see. And my hint is 3, about 3. All right. And the next one, again, thinking like a machine, classify the objects that you see. Okay. Now we're going to compare. So now I'm going to give you the same images, and I'm going to show you how a machine thought when they looked at that picture and what a human came up with. So hopefully the list that you came up with matches the machine. So we'll see if there's any human bias that was in there. All right, so the first one that we saw, on the left-hand side is what the machine thought or categorized. So the machine saw hands, knife, and vegetables. Okay, I can clearly see that as well. The human bias side is looking at it as cooking, chopping, and dicing. So let me take a step back. The true definition of bias is described as an inclination, especially one that inhibits some kind of judgment or inference. So when we're looking at this, our human bias is we're making that inference. Well, you know what? It looks like they're cutting up some vegetables, so they must be getting ready to cook. They must be doing some food prep. So our human bias is identifying or making that inference of what we're seeing in the image, where the machine is just looking at the objects, just the hands, knife, and vegetable. All right, let's look at the next one. So again, same thing, hands, knife. Now the only thing that's changed is we went from vegetables to wood. So again, the machine is only identifying hands, knife, and wood. But the human bias, that inference comes in, well, it looks like they are carving or whittling. They must be getting ready to make kindling for fire. So right away, we make that inference of what is actually happening, not just identifying the objects. The last one, this one is my favorite because there's so many different inferences that we can make from this. So of course, again, the machine came up with hands, knife, same two, and now we've switched it to pants. So it's only identifying those three objects. But our human bias comes in. We can make an inference on this. So right away, I'm thinking, this is a scary movie. This is a horror movie. I'm scared. Maybe this is Michael Myers. So right away, our human bias is making that inference. Could it be maybe a farmer that just happened to go out in his chicken coop to get dinner ready? It's a good possibility as well. So again, this is a great example of human bias. So remember, the machine is only looking at the objects, but our human brain can make that inference of what is actually happening in that image. So again, conditions and context and cues all help us make meaning from images, but AI can't necessarily do that. So there's always bias that's going to be present. All right. Quick little overview about machine learning and different ways that you can introduce this to your students in the classroom tomorrow. What I want to tell you, I'm just going to quickly tell you about some of the different subscription options that BSD has, but then I'm going to dive right back into artificial intelligence. So, some of the options that you have when working with BSD. So, we do have a 100% free subscription that you can sign up for and start using with your students tomorrow. I'll dive a little bit deeper into what specific projects come with that free subscription in 1 second. We also have the middle one, which is called our build subscription, which includes everything. It's just a pay per student subscription. There's over 600 hours of curriculum. You also get support from me, and I will help guide you on what projects. Maybe you're more interested in game development, maybe you're more interested in web development or artificial intelligence. So I can give you suggestions on what projects to do with your students. And we really are geared for students in grades 3 through 12. We do have lower elementary curriculum as well, but really our core curriculum is great for the third grade level to begin at. And then our last program is called the Academy program. This is great. So say you want to start an after school program, or you want a summer program for the students, and maybe you just don't have the instructor, you don't have that body to teach the digital skills or to host that club. We can also provide the instructor for you. So one of our instructors would come to your site, and they would teach the summer program or after school program, or even your in school program as well. That is also an option. So some of the projects that you get for free, I'm going to start with the ones off on the right-hand side here first, and then we'll circle back to the AI. But each of these four projects, so first we have just a simple introductory where the students will be introduced to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But these other projects can easily be integrated into any core subject area as well. So for example, the people who inspire me, they are suggested to choose anybody that inspires them. But maybe you want to make it a little bit more specific. Maybe you want the students to choose their top three favorite authors or inventors or explorers. Same thing with my favorites website. This is just, I love this project for the beginning of the school year. A lot of my teacher friends will get these posters where the students will color it, and they'll talk about their family and their likes and their favorite things, their activities that they do. And then those posters get displayed out in the hallway. Well, I like to do this my favorites website because then they can create their own web page, and then they can share that with anybody. So they have relatives that live down in Florida for the winter, they can share that project with anybody in the world. So it's not just sitting in the hallway just for the school people to see, but instead the students are creating it to be able to share with anybody in the world. And then our last project that I really wanted to focus on, of course, because it relates today, is our AI webcam image classifier. The students are actually going to build their own facial recognition system, and they've used everything from their own faces to pets, um, random objects that are around their desk, pencils, pens, anything that is near them, they can use to actually train their image classifier. So just a little bit of a tie-in. So that's a free project that you can start using with the students tomorrow. Now, one course in particular that we do have is called Code the Future with Artificial Intelligence. It revolves a lot around the webinar that we just had. So it's 25 hours with the students are going to be learning machine learning. They're going to be coding. There's that vision recognition system, and they will be diving into art and music and games and digital assistants. They're actually going to, just to give you an example, one of the games that they create is actually a chess game that they'll play against AI with. And then, of course, they're going to be talking about that data bias and how to categorize data and how the human thinks versus the machine learning thinks. Um, with all of our courses does come a course progression, which is basically like a teacher's guide. It's going to give you the course description. It's going to break the course down by the hour. So it'll help pace you. It'll also give you suggested questions to ask the students, along with suggested responses from those students. It'll also include extension activities, particularly if you have more advanced students, some additional projects that those students can partake in as well. And all of our courses do come with this type of course progression. I'm just highlighting the artificial intelligence one today. So that concludes my discussion on artificial intelligence. I would really appreciate it if you have a phone, you can just scan the QR, or you can go directly to the bit.ly. It's just a quick little feedback form. Really, I'm just looking at, did you enjoy today's webinar? What did you get out of today's webinar? And what else are you interested in? Is there other topics that I could hit on that would help you and your students, whether that be something specific with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, or maybe additional information about artificial intelligence as well? So if you could just take 2 minutes, even if you just copy the link and then maybe after we close the webinar, you then fill it out. And again, anybody that attended today's webinar will receive the recording via email. And of course, anybody that was not able to attend, but maybe you signed up and something got in the way of your schedule, you will be receiving that recording as well. So never fear there. I'm going to leave this screen up just in case, so that way everybody has time to copy down that link or scan the QR. And I'll open it up to any type of questions. So Beth, I don't know if anybody put anything in the chat. If you have any questions, I'm open to answer.
We do have one question from Jean. What are some additional ways that AI can be used to stimulate student curiosity?
Ooh, very good. So I think in the very beginning, one of the examples that I gave was how AI is being integrated into Minecraft. I think just doing a quick Google search on some hot topics, you could even use ChatGPT to help you. But to really get them curious, think about anything else that we teach them, right? We always try to find that common connection. Like, what do they enjoy doing that we can make that connection with AI? And for me, definitely um, is gaming. Obviously, we know the students are really into gaming, even video creation. There's a lot of AI tools out there that will not only help the students create a script for a video, but it'll also help them avatar wise too. for creating those videos. So I think the best way to spark curiosity or engagement is to pull in their likes, and the first thing that comes to my mind is gaming for sure.
We have another question from Liliana. Um, can you give an example of an AI tool that can create graphs as answer choices? And what are some other actual uses that teachers are able to use in the classrooms, such as things that can be printed or have the students complete?
Great question. Okay. So I'm going to kind of steer our conversation a little bit more into generative AI, which is like that chat GPT. Some great tools that I've been using is Perplexity, and Claude. Those are like my top three. And one thing I will point out, I'll circle back to that in a second. But one other thing that BSD does offer is a AI generative course for students that will teach them how to use generative AI. It will go into the ethics behind AI as well. And then there's some practice activities where they'll actually use it and be able to explore. On the teacher side of things, we also have one for teachers. So teachers are going to learn how to create lesson plans using generative AI. They're going to learn how to use generative AI to do differentiated lesson plans, printables. I lean a lot, like anytime I'm writing new curriculum for BSD, we'll come up with the idea. We might come up with like a general outline, and then I'll share that outline with generative AI, such as Claude, Poe, or Perplexity, and get feedback from them and be able to use any of those tools. If you use your prompt in the generative AI clearly, you will be amazed at the results that you get. You can easily get printable worksheets. You can have AI create questions for you that you would have sat down for maybe an hour, 2 hours preparing for that lesson, where AI could help you generate a lot of that information within just a couple of minutes. Keeping in mind, remember that AI is not always perfect, it's not always correct. You do have to go back, reread, make adjustments, make changes. You know your students better than AI does, of course. Um, but definitely lean in on that. And what I could do too is make sure that when we share this current webinar video with you, that I'll also share some details about generative AI and some of the courses that we offer to help you get started with your students.
We have one more question from David. We've talked a lot about how AI can help the students, but what about the teachers? Are there any ways that you've found that AI can directly support educators in their daily tasks and make our lives a little easier?
100%. First of all, I'm going to go back to that teacher course. I would highly recommend looking into our AI teacher course. It walks you through. When I created the course, I really wanted the teachers to be able to see everything that they had that potential in. So think about every time that you send out a parent newsletter or a parent email, a class email to the whole class, all the parents. We're having a fundraiser, or we're going on a field trip, and we're used to creating that letter. Well, I can just simply go into AI and say, hey, I need to create a letter for all my parents. We're going on a field trip on this date at this time. I need volunteers. And then ask it to help you. It's going to create the letter. It's going to create a sign up list for you. It's going to create a schedule for volunteers. Same thing with your lesson planning. Like I said, when I'm going in and I'm creating curriculum for BSD, I go in, I give it an outline or an idea that I have, and I'm asking it to help me. I'm asking it to create the outline, the script outline for the teacher. I'm asking it to give me printables, not only for the student, but for myself. Maybe I have a lesson and I'm noticing, gosh, the students are really struggling on variables. Well, I can go into po.com and say, this is a lesson that I'm doing with my students, but they're really struggling with variables. How can I better explain it to them? And it'll give you some ideas. And a lot of times it's out of the box ideas that, wow, I didn't think of that idea, or oh, I thought of that, but I didn't think of taking it to that level. So it's really, I look at generative AI as strictly a tool, just like I would use Safari or Google. It's just going to give me that next level of information, that next level of assistance. I have to be honest, I use AI just about every single day for whatever, between writing curriculum to, I wrote this email, but I don't really like the wording. Can you help me word it a little bit better? So lots of different tools that educators especially can use to make their lives a lot easier, save a lot of time. Like they say, when you're planning a lesson, and they say for every hour that the lesson is going to take, you double that for planning. So if it takes me an hour to teach the students about HTML and CSS, then it's going to take me 2 hours to plan it. So why not lean on AI to give you that little extra support?
I think that's all the questions that we have for right now, unless anyone wants to add last minute questions into the chat.
And like I said, you'll get a copy of the recording, and I'll also make sure that we include some information regarding those generative AI courses that we have as well. So that way you have a little bit more information about that. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody that attended. And for those of you that didn't attend, I'm sorry that I missed you, and I hope that you do enjoy the recording. Um, Please keep an eye out. You can follow me on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and find me as Allison Pedrick. I do a weekly video series called Tech Tea Tuesday. So every Tuesday, I release some type of helpful video, regardless. It could be about digital citizenship, it could be about artificial intelligence, it could be about coding, computational thinking, digital skills. So every week I try to switch up the topic. I gear it to all different grade levels, whether it's lower elementary or upper high school. So feel free to check me out there. And if you have any questions after you receive your recording, definitely reach out and I'd be more than happy to help. Thank you so much for attending, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks.